Yes! In the Pokemon franchise, aside from the Pokemon themselves, their human companions known as Pokemon trainers are just as significant, and it's safe to say that the Pokemon and the trainers equally share the limelight. This is why in the core series games, you play as a kid whose sole purpose is to catch Pokemon, train them, and battle with them. Of course, there's the spin-off Mystery Dungeon series where trainers are completely absent from the game, and you simply play as the Pokemon themselves. However, it's the core series titles that have garnered the most attention and have proven to be the most successful titles in the entire franchise. Now, we already know who the Pokemon are, but the trainers consist of you, the player character, the professor you get your first Pokemon from, and your rival, for example. But there's one other trainer class that can only be held by one person per region at a time. That title being Champion. And we've seen plenty of champions over the years, notable examples being Blue from Gen 1 and Cynthia from Gen 4, but today, I want to shed some light on the champion of the Galar region, known as Leon. So for those who weren't already aware, Leon is not only the champion of the Galar region, he's also an incredibly talented trainer as a whole, and is referred to as the Undefeatable Champion. In the games and the Pokemon Journeys anime series, it's been stated numerous times that Leon never lost a battle when he first entered the Gym Challenge at the age of 10. His age is never confirmed in the games or the anime, but based on how he looks, it's safe to say that he's at least in his early 20s, meaning he's never lost a battle in over a decade and some change. And even though that sounds incredibly outlandish, that's a different story for a different day. Although when you take into consideration who Leon's ace Pokemon is, the fact that he never lost a battle starts to make a bit more sense. Leon's most reliable partner is none other than Charizard, one of, if not the most popular Pokemon in the entire franchise aside from Pikachu himself. Charizard is the box art mascot of the Pokemon Red and Pokemon Fire Red version video games and has made numerous appearances in the anime. Ash's Charizard is one of, if not his most powerful Pokemon, and was the sole reason why he was able to win some of his most challenging battles. Kiawe and Alan also have a Charizard, the latter being his ace Pokemon and the former being his personal ride Pokemon, which also applies in the Generation 7 games because in Pokemon Sun, Moon, Ultra Sun, and Ultra Moon, Charizard is the right Pokemon used for flying. So yeah, Charizard's popularity is not a secret, so it's definitely not surprising why the quote-unquote undefeatable champion of the Galar region would have Charizard as his ace Pokemon. And due to how popular and overrated Charizard is as a whole, I was disappointed when I found out that Leon had a Charizard in the first place, meaning that my disappointment would have remained the same if Charizard wasn't his ace Pokemon and was just another regular member of his team. But this is Charizard we're talking about here, so that definitely wouldn't have happened. So I put together a list of Pokemon that I feel could have gotten the job done just as well, if not better than Charizard as Leon's ace. But before we get into the list, I want to first talk about why Charizard was such an easy pick for this role. Charizard has the following attributes. It's incredibly popular. Yep, because we already didn't know that. It looks cosmetically appealing. When compared to many things, an orange fire-breathing dragon is more than likely going to be what most people gravitate towards. Just being real. Especially when compared to the other fully evolved starters from Gen 1. And this is coming from a die-hard Bulbasaur evolutionary line fan. It's incredibly versatile in battle. Not only can Charizard breathe fire, but it moves quickly, it fights using its claws, tail, wings, teeth, you know? Now that I think about it, I just described its whole body. So yeah, this thing's entire body is a weapon. Piggybacking off of that, it can fly, which gives it a huge advantage over anything that can't fly. So yeah, Charizard has a lot going for it. I guess that Nintendo Game Freak decided to just give Leon a Charizard because it's a familiar face. I don't know, but that's exactly the problem because Charizard's popularity has already been factored in decades before Leon even existed. And when I think of Charizard, I'm not ever going to think of Leon, especially when you factor in how many trainers in the anime have had a Charizard before Leon did. So if Leon ever comes to mind, I'll just think of him as just another character who has a Charizard. To me, Charizard and Leon are not synonymous, and the best example of such would be Gladion and Type Null. Type Null and Gladion both made their debut in Gen 7, so whenever I personally think of Type Null, in some way, shape, or form, Gladion comes to mind and vice versa. I personally believe that Nintendo Game Freak making Gladion's ace, a Pokemon that was introduced into the series in the same generation as he was a completely amazing move, because this way, these two characters were able to build up popularity simultaneously, and Gladion is a precedent setter because he's the first and probably last, and let's be real, probably the only trainer to ever have Type Null, then later Sceptile as his main Pokemon. Then again, Ash, Alan, and even Red have all had a Charizard of their own, and since they've been around a lot longer than Leon has, it simply makes Leon look like a bandwagoner. So when it comes to the Pokemon that I personally believe could replace Charizard as Leon's ace, putting a list together was difficult because admittedly you can't just pick any Pokemon, despite the fact that there's close to 900 others aside from Charizard. This list took a while because each Pokemon had to have a good balance of coolness factor and power fantasy, and even though this applies to a decent amount of Pokemon, there's only a select few that can rival Charizard in power, versatility, and coolness, since popularity can't be factored in because, once again, this is Charizard we're talking about. But one more thing, I wanted to mention that I would want all of the Pokemon on this list to have a Gigantamax form for the obvious reason that, well, Charizard has one. Okay, kicking things off, I felt that Dragapult would have been a great option for innumerable reasons, but I'll try and boil everything down. So for starters, Dragapult is the pseudo-legendary of the 8th generation, and belonging to that group, its power speaks for itself. Now for those of you that do not know what a pseudo-legendary is, it's a group of Pokemon that are the final form of a 3-stage evolutionary line whose base stat total is exactly 600, and for the exception of Gen 3, there's been one pseudo-legendary introduced in each gen. Dragapult would have been an amazing choice because it hails from the same region as Leon, and it's the most powerful non-legendary Pokemon of its respective region. Now check this out, there does exist a confirmed instance that there's a high success rate if a champion's ace Pokemon is a pseudo-legendary, and this example exists in the form of Cynthia and Garchomp. Now I brought up Cynthia because to this day, being 4 generations after her debut, Cynthia is one of, if not the most formidable champions to ever exist, and her ace is a pseudo-legendary. Cynthia even appears as an optional battle in Pokemon Black and White. The game's released a generation after the generation that Cynthia first appeared in. So yeah, for those of us who actually battled Cynthia or know of her legacy, when Cynthia is brought up in conversation, it'll either be because of her Garchomp or her Garchomp will be brought up shortly after. But back to it. Being a pseudo-legendary, Dragapult is obviously no slouch in the battling department, but it's that base speed stat of 142 is what makes it so formidable. Dragapult is the fastest out of all of the pseudo-legendaries, and being a dragon capable of flying, Dragapult is able to replicate most of, if not all of whatever Charizard is able to do. Also, Dragapult is a Ghost Dragon type, a type combination shared by only Giratina. But aside from its type and its speed, its best selling point is the fact that it fires Dreepy, the first stage of its evolutionary chain, from the holes in its head like missiles, which is something that no other Pokemon has ever done. Now I wanted to note that Leon does have a Dragapult, and it's a part of his team in the games and in the anime, but it receives little to no spotlight because of Charizard. I mean, you already knew that, but yeah. And because of this, I feel that Dragapult was close to being Leon's ace at one point in time, but instead, we'll have to deal with another missed opportunity. Speaking of missed opportunities, it sucks that Game Freak didn't think that the Gen 8 pseudo-legendary of all things wasn't deserving of a Gigantamax form, because based on how often Leon always seems to be in a hurry to show off Gigantamax Charizard, he would have undoubtedly did the same thing if Gigantamax Dragapult existed. I feel that Dragonite is a worthy contender to replace Charizard because out of all of the Pokemon on this list, Dragonite is the most similar to Charizard. Both are Gen 1 Dragonic Pokemon with similar color schemes, and when I was growing up, I always felt that Charizard and Dragonite's designs influenced one another in some type of way. Then sometime later, I ended up finding out that both Dragonite and Charizard draw inspiration from European dragons. So the fact that they look so similar started to make a lot of sense. Dragonite is the first fully evolved Dragon-type Pokemon, as well as the very first pseudo-legendary, and received a decent amount of praise and recognition in the games and anime. Notable characters such as Lance, Iris, and now Ash in the Pokemon Journeys anime all own a Dragonite. But let's not forget about Drake from the Orange Islands arc of the anime, whose ace Pokemon was a Dragonite that gave Ash some serious problems in a Pokemon battle in which it was able to knock out 3 of Ash's Pokemon in a row, including Ash's Charizard, until it was taken down by Ash's Pikachu. So yeah, Dragonite is the farthest thing from a pushover, but it still bothers me that despite the fact that it's the first fully evolved Dragon type and pseudo-legendary, Dragonite has been swept under the rug a bit. And I say this because to this day, Dragonite hasn't received a Mega Evolution, a Gigantamax form, a regional variant, or anything, and it's almost unbelievable based on the fact that it's such a precedent setter. Now I don't know why Game Freak hasn't shown Dragonite more love, but it's definitely deserving of it. Now, previously I stated that Dragonite's design is based on European dragons, but is also loosely based on fairy dragons, which applies more apparently to his pre-evolved forms. But when you take this into consideration, the introduction of the Galar region would have been the perfect opportunity to introduce a dragon fairy Galarian version of Dragonite. For years, I've seen fan art of what Dragonite would look like if it retained some of the cosmetics from its pre-evolved forms, since it's never made sense to the vast majority of the Pokemon community, as the Dratini is an elegant serpentine dragon that eventually ends up as an orange derpy dragon with arms and legs. So if a regional variant of Dragonite existed, I believe it would make the most sense if it looked more like Dratini and Dragonair. This would have been the perfect foundation for some amazing character development in the anime, because if Leon's ace was a dragon fairy Galarian Dragonite, it would have been the perfect rival to Ash's Cantonian Dragonite. Out of every Pokemon on this list, I personally feel that Tyranitar would have made the most sense to be Leon's ace, and I'll explain why, but I have to break everything down. So, in the Pokemon Journeys anime and in the Sword and Shield games, Raihan is recognized as the most powerful gym leader in the Galar region, but of course this means that he's second only to Leon in terms of battle prowess. This created a one-sided rivalry between Raihan and Leon, and I'm referring to it as one-sided because Raihan is the self-proclaimed rival of Leon, and it's pretty obvious that Leon, despite the fact that he sees Raihan as a powerful trainer, he doesn't see him as a rival or his equal. However, it's been stated that Raihan has come the closest out of anybody to defeating Leon, as he was able to knock out more of Leon's Pokemon than anybody ever has. Now, the only reason why any of this is relevant is because Raihan's ace Pokemon is Duraludon, and if you read up on the Pokemon lore, you'll find out that Duraludon and Tyranitar are rivals who commonly fight over territory in the mountainous parts of the Galar region. So how amazing would it have been if Leon and Raihan's rivalry extended to their ace Pokemon? I feel that if Tyranitar was Leon's ace, this could have had some huge character development potential, even more so than if Dragonite was Leon's ace. And I say this because instead of having a one-sided rivalry, Leon and Raihan could have had a very immersive history as childhood rivals. Leon could have started off with a Larvitar, and Raihan starting off with a Duraludon would have really changed things up, because Duraludon being a single stage Pokemon is already considered to be fully evolved, which isn't something that Larvitar achieves until 2 forms later. Now, this would have resulted in Raihan's Duraludon making a mockery out of Leon's Larvitar all the way until it eventually evolved into Tyranitar. If this happened, Leon would have been the underdog who surpassed Raihan and ultimately ended up becoming the Galar region's champion. And due to the fact that Duraludon and Tyranitar actually had beef in the Galar region, to be able to see him go head to head would have been a lot more meaningful. Of course, if things went this way, we wouldn't have ended up with the undefeatable champion version of Leon that we currently have. But with all due seriousness, I find this to be significantly more interesting and a lot more logical as well. If you agree that Tyranitar was a good pick for this list, be advised that Urshifu is just as good. Quoted on Bulbapedia. According to Mustard, Leon was once his best student at the Master Dojo, but he was never able to finish his training there, as he never made it to the Tower of Two Fists due to his horrible sense of direction. You know, after I found this out, I was incredibly disappointed because this could have really been something great. So if you played the Isle of Armor DLC in Pokemon Sword and Shield, you're fully aware that you're given a Cubfu, and as you train it and build a relationship with it, it'll evolve into either one of Urshifu's 2 forms. If trained at the Tower of Darkness, it'll evolve into the Single Strike style of Urshifu, but if you choose the Tower of Water, Urshifu will have the Rapid Strike style. Now, if Cubfu was Leon's starter Pokemon, I could see him throwing the towel in on training with Mustard and taking his own path, since his sense of direction was too poor to find either one of the towers. This would have resulted in Leon's Cubfu evolving into Urshifu with a form that isn't Rapid or Single Strike style, but a completely unique one. This form would either be completely unobtainable by us as a player, or only obtainable via a side quest with Leon himself, which would have only been possible if you actually defeated Leon, since it isn't required to complete the main story to play the Isle of Armor DLC. Remember how I mentioned Gladion and Type Null earlier? Game Freak could have easily taken that same exact route with Leon and gave him Urshifu as his ace Pokemon, and the same amount of success would have been replicated. Furthermore, this would have been an amazing way to build up hype for the Isle of Armor DLC, because I'm pretty sure that the community would have reacted to Urshifu differently if the first sighting of it was in the league battle against the champion himself. Game Freak could have pulled this off by not revealing Urshifu in the game until the moment where we actually battle Leon for the champion title. Now, I understand that data mining and leaking is always going to be a problem, but Game Freak could have made things super interesting by leaving 2 spots in the Galar Pokedex blank or skipped entirely. And when the Isle of Armor DLC released and we obtained Cupfu for the first time and eventually obtained Urshifu, Cupfu and Urshifu would fill those 2 missing spots. I personally don't have an issue with Cupfu and Urshifu being classified as legendaries, but a lot of people do, and if this route was taken, Cupfu and Urshifu probably wouldn't have their legendary status. Because if you haven't already realized, when all of the Pokemon are revealed for a particular generation, anything released afterwards is always classified as legendary or mythical. But again, it doesn't bother me that Cupfu and Urshifu are legendaries, because if Leon's ace Pokemon was a legendary, the whole Undefeatable Champion gimmick would have made a lot more sense. Admittedly, Flygon made it on this list for some subjective reasons, but hear me out because they make a lot of sense. As a Dragon-type Pokemon, Flygon has always been a bit odd, considering that when a Dragon Pokemon comes to mind, you either think of a pseudo-legendary such as Dragonite or Garchomp, or a legendary such as Palkia or Dialga. Now, it doesn't help that Flygon made his debut in Gen 3, which was the only generation to date that introduced 2 pseudo-legendaries at the same time, so it was never able to measure up in the stats department. So despite the fact that Flygon is a very solid Dragon type, I always felt that it was worthy of a lot more recognition than what it currently has. No differently than Dragonite, Flygon has never received a Mega Evolution, a regional variant, a Gigantamax form, or anything for that matter. Now, it was confirmed by Game Freak's Ken Sugimori that a Mega Evolution was in the works for Flygon, but it was ultimately scrapped due to him getting artist block. And although I agree that this is very disappointing news, as an artist and a content creator, I can relate, because when you're in the entertainment career field, the statement, "you're your own worst critic," applies double. But as far as I'm concerned, that was the only confirmed instance that another form of Flygon was supposed to happen. But now that we're on the subject, one of the most requested unused type combinations is Bug Dragon, and it's been stated thousands of times that if Flygon were to receive a regional variant, this type combination would be the only logical one. I mean, let's be real here. Flygon's entire evolutionary line is based on antlions, an insect, and Trapinch is literally an antlion larva, just without the bug typing. And to make matters worse, Flygon's entire evolutionary line belongs to the bug and dragon egg groups. There have been multiple instances of Game Freak giving unique type combinations to regional variants, so Flygon of all Pokemon is just as, if not the most deserving of the same treatment. Even in its current ground dragon typing, Flygon is more than deserving of having some spotlight, because as far as I'm concerned, there aren't many instances where Flygon has made an appearance in the games or anime and made a lasting impression. But if it were the ace Pokemon of a champion, I'm 100% certain that it would. And for those of you that fear that Flygon wouldn't be a good pick, it's more than likely based off the realization that Raihan has a Flygon on his main team. And even though this is true, I always thought that it was odd that out of Raihan's entire team of 4 as a gym leader, the only other dragon type on his team is his ace, Duraludon. The others are Sandaconda and Gigalith, which makes no sense because at this day and age in the Pokemon series lifespan, Raihan literally had tons of options to choose from without having to worry about using duplicate Pokemon. This restriction only applied to Lance and Clara, 2 powerful dragon type specialists from Gens 1 and 2, and between both of these 2 generations, only 2 fully evolved dragon types existed. But once again, Raihan doesn't have a single excuse because he could have been given any non-legendary dragon type from the 7 generations prior. So if Flygon was Leon's ace, replacing Raihan's Flygon with something else wouldn't be an issue at all. Normally when it comes to starter Pokemon, the grass ones seem to be the least appreciated, and being somebody who actually does appreciate grass type starters and grass types as a whole, I feel that they should receive a lot more love. Now, I was a bit iffy adding Sceptile to this list, but the more I thought about it, the better of an idea it sounded. Hoenn/Gen 3 is my favorite era of any of the core series Pokemon games, and even though Blaziken is my personal favorite Pokemon, I'm also heavily a fan of Sceptile Swampert as well. Even though statistically Sceptile is a special attacker, it's been proven in the anime that it's a more than formidable melee fighter, as seen in the battle between Ash's Greninja and Sawyer Sceptile. Ash's Sceptile was hands down the most powerful member on his team during the Hoenn era of the anime, and if Leon's ace Pokemon was a Sceptile, I can only imagine how powerful it would be. Also, you gotta take into consideration that Sceptile is one of the fastest fully evolved starter Pokemon, an attribute that was present in the anime as well, because from what I recall, Ash and Sawyer Sceptiles were incredibly light on their feet. Adding Blaziken to this list was completely spur of the moment, and at first I didn't think that it would make sense or be a good idea in general, but the more I thought about it, Blaziken and Charizard have a lot of similar attributes that I didn't pay attention to until now. Okay, so Blaziken and Charizard are both fully evolved fire type starter Pokemon, and it's safe to say that Blaziken Blaziken is easily the second most popular of all of the fully evolved fire starters. When Mega Evolution first made it onto the scene back in Gen 6, Blaziken was the only Gen 3 starter to receive a Mega Evolution. Swampert and Sceptile were given the same treatment, but this didn't happen until the Ruby and Sapphire remakes released a year later. And from my point of view, Blaziken receiving a Mega Evolution before the other Gen 3 starters was a vague equivalent to Charizard being the only starter to receive 2 Mega Evolved forms. Anyways, Blaziken has always been my favorite Pokemon since the day I first saw it back in 2002 when Ruby and Sapphire first came out. And despite the fact that Blaziken has only had a few appearances in the anime, every time that it was present, it always put on a show. And for a while, it was a force to be reckoned with in the competitive scene thanks to its Mega Evolution, as well as its Speed Boost ability. An ability that increases its speed every turn and is always available in its Mega form, but is only available as its hidden ability in its regular form. If Blaziken was Leon's ace, I can only imagine how scary it would be with its lightning fast kicks and diverse move pool. And if I'm being perfectly honest, Leon probably would have been one of my favorite characters because it's an understandable factor for somebody to become affined to a character based on relatability alone. I would have loved for the strongest trainer in the Galar region's ace Pokemon to be my favorite Pokemon of all time. I also wanted to add that in the Pokemon Journeys anime, Ash has a Lucario, and if Blaziken was Leon's ace, a fight between it and Ash's Lucario would have had the potential to rival the legendary battle between Ash's Greninja and Alon's Charizard during the Kalos Pokemon League. This is a fight that I find myself watching every now and then, solely due to how perfectly executed it was, and it really goes to show you how real Pokemon battles can get. But if I'm being 100% honest, a big part of me wants the Blaziken versus Lucario fight from the Death Battle YouTube channel to be a reality. Lucario is also one of my favorites and a part of my original Pearl version team back in 2007. So to see another Lucario versus Blaziken fight in the anime, aside from the fight between Karina's Lucario and the Blaziken, would be nothing short of amazing. Now, if you haven't seen this video, I highly suggest that you check it out. If Pokemon battles look half as good as this in the games, it would be difficult to play another game series if I'm being blatantly honest. Well, everybody, that does it for this one. I really enjoyed putting together a hypothetical list of Pokemon I personally think will be able to replace Charizard as Leon's ace. It's always fun to think about what if scenarios and how much better and or more interesting things could have been if a certain instance either happened or never happened. But yeah, in the comment section, tell me what Pokemon you think would be a better ace Pokemon than Charizard for Leon. And if you made it to the end of this video and enjoyed what you watch, do me a favor and thumb rush to that like button until it turns blue. And if you're new to my neck of the woods, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and click that bell icon so you don't ever miss a video of the most elite gaming content. But with that being stated, 1LHD is over and out. Y'all take it easy.